Hi, I know the ad's not completely over, but hi. Guess it sucks for people who aren't subscribed. Sorry. Maybe the epic watch along is still in my system. Anyway, hi, how are you? Oh my god. Oh my god. We're watching. We're reading Remnants of Filth, Vol.2. We're on chapter. I don't know, okay. Listen. I have my headphones on. I shouldn't have done that. We're on chapter 42 called Catch Me If You Can. What does that mean? Ew, my arm did a thing. That was weird. I am going to get a proper book toggle. Next model update, I'm getting a proper book toggle. I swear, you can. I'll take this to my grave. You can kill me for it. Do it. I lost all phrases in my brain. Wasn't really ready to speak right now, but thankfully I don't need to speak that much when I have words to read. Anyway, I have tea. How are you? How's your day going? I'm not sure how. Ooh, that's sweet. I'm not sure how well I'm gonna be able to read today because I did in fact step outside in the school. It's so hot today. It's so hot and so humid. It's like you step outside and you're choking. It's not nice. But I did that. But I'm indoors now. I'm indoors with the AC on, and I'm fine. I'm doing all right. That to say, I stepped outside, so that meant I had a big old flashbang from the sun into my eyes. That's what it does when it's bright outside. And I have to drive, and I also forget to blink when I drive. Anyway, reading is maybe gonna be weird today. Potentially. It could be great. It could be great. Or it could be weird. But that's fine. We do this anyway. If you're new here, I read for about 2 hours, almost 2 hours, maybe an hour 45, usually. And I usually take a break through halfway through, just to get up and get my blood pumping. This book requires trigger warning, so if you have any triggers that could be used, you could use a warning for, go ahead and look it up. This is Remnants of Filth. There's a plethora of resources for that, so without further ado, let's get started. We are on page 99 for chapter 42, called Catch Me If You Can. There's a movie called that with Leonardo DiCaprio. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Catch me if you can. In the first few days, Li Wei's arrangements for Gumong were non-existent. Moji was dissatisfied with the state of affairs. What did I bring him to Jiha Manor for? He demanded stormily. It wasn't so he could just lie around here. Give him something to do, today. Not today, Li Wei replied hastily. Why ever not? Are you taking bribes from him? How could I? Li Wei said. Besides, Gumong didn't even know what the word bribe means. Doesn't even know what the word bribe means. Seeing Shihajun's cold and handsome face stiffen and freeze over, Li Wei helplessly explained, My lord, although Gumong learned a few rules at Lomei Pavilion, he still fundamentally thinks like a beast. He's awfully wary of you because he's lost fights with you before. Now that he's got a new home, of course he's tense and on edge. Are you speaking about a person or a cat? Moji was clearly angry, but Li Wei seized on his words. Like a lifeline, anyway. He clapped his hands and said, my lord is so wise to see it out at once. Just treat him as if he were a cat. Okay. Was there anyone more opportunistic in his flattery than Li Wei? Yet it worked. After being praised so effusively, Moji couldn't possibly continue to rebuke Li Wei. Moji nailed him with a glare and let him keep talking. My lord, please think of it like this. A cat, when first taken home, is afraid of strangers, said Li Wei. Only after it's grown familiar with its surroundings will it be willing to venture out and wander around, catch mice and so on. Gumang is the same right now. You see, he's a complete newcomer, a stranger to everyone. He's already hiding himself away in the most godforsaken places. Yesterday, I spent a shuchen. I spent a shuchen looking for him. Guess where he was? I have no interest in where he secretes himself, Moji replied coldly. Oh, well, in short, when I finally found him, I didn't have time to open my mouth before he scampered away. Moji was still for a moment. Where is he hiding? He asked flatly. He was met by silence. The other servants nearby couldn't take much more of this. All of them truly admired how Li Wei's eye only twitched before he continued as calmly as before. The rice barrel in the granary, he paused, then added. After he scurried inside, he even pulled the lid back on. Moji brought his palm to his forehead, as if suffering a massive headache. So, my lord, Li Wei said, even if the subordinate did want to speak to him and assign him work, I could scarcely find him in the first place, and even if I did, he'd run away at the sight of me. Moji had no words. Sure, this all rather made sense, but why did it put him in a foul mood? In this subordinate's opinion, Li Wei continued, we should ignore him for a few days, but don't scare him either. When he comes out on his own to sunbathe in the courtyard, I'll give him some work to do. Moji thought it was over and realized that he had no choice but to resign himself to this outcome. Give him the hardest work, he grumbled. Of course, of course. Moji privately thought Li Wei was too much of a kiss-up, but... Yes, it's fine. But he gave good advice more often than not. Gumang was indeed too bestial right now, creeping about like an animal who had just been brought to Shihe Manor. So Moji carefully observed Gumang's behavior for a few days, and found that, just as Li Wei had said, Gumang spent his daylight hours hiding in dark and secluded corners. His eyes shone from the shadows as he stared warily at all who passed by. He discovered that Gumang had two favorite hiding spots, one of which was the rice barrel in the granary. Once unable to stop himself, Moji solemnly lifted up a corner of the wooden lid with a soft clatter, revealing two glimmering motes of light staring back at him, just as expected. Moji engaged in a staring contest with those shining pinpoints. Finding this silent stare-down deeply awkward, he replaced the lid with another clack. But Gumang evidently no longer considered the rice barrel a safe hideout. Moji hadn't even taken two steps when he heard the lid clack open again behind him. He looked back to see Gumang clambering out of the rice barrel in a manner he must have thought stealthily. As Gumang clung to the side of the barrel, he turned his head and met Moji's gaze, his foot still suspended in midair. He really is like a kitty. Oh, Gumang. In the next instant, Gumang hastily squirmed back into the barrel and closed the lid again. Curious, Moji walked over and nudged the lid once more. This time it seemed stuck, refusing to budge in the slightest. Gumang had apparently grabbed onto the lid from the inside, engaging Moji in a covert standoff. Oh my god, there's an illustration of this. It's so cute. His little fang sticking out. No, don't break my heart like that. He's so cute. Oh, he's so cute. Exasperated and amused with equal measure, Moji rapped on the lid. What, are you the beast of the rice barrel instead of the beast of the altar now? Gumang fidgeted inside the barrel. He pretended like he wasn't there, but kept his grip on the lid steady. Moji tried again to speak to him, but all his words went unanswered. His mood gradually turned sullen. In the end, he flicked his sleeves and decided he would waste no more breath on Gumang. Lunatic, he muttered under his breath as he turned to leave. When he checked the granary the next day, Gumang had already abandoned the rice barrel as a hiding spot. Gumang's other favored lair was the wine cellar. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm rearranging stuff on my computer. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I can just do that. Okay. Anyway. Gumong's other favorite lair was the wine cellar. After the rice barrel, this was his favorite spot to lurk during the day. However, Moji wasn't interested in paying him another visit. After all, the wine cellar was pitch black. He'd only be able to see those two faintly glowing eyes. That interested him not at all. Late one night, Moji was reading by lamplight when he heard rustling outside. He pried the window open slightly, with his fingertips and saw Gumong pacing about by the light of the moon. Gumong's expression was mild, but his eyes were alert as they darted around his new, strange surroundings. Many nights passed this way. Sometimes Gumong crouched on a stone bench to stare spellbound at the moon. His features were always placid, and his eyes vacant. On other nights, he stared blankly at the fish in the lake. From time to time, he would stick a hand in to stir up the waters, the moon's glimmering reflection bathing his silhouette in cold light. But most often of all, and this truly dumbfounded Moji, Gumong came out to forage for food. Moji didn't know exactly how voracious Gumong's appetite was these days, but he'd found it quite excessive to the few times he'd seen Gumong eat. For example, tonight Gumong had slipped into the dining hall. One stick of incense later, he finally lurched out with considerable difficulty. Under the pristine moonlight, this thief looked impossibly huge. He had slung across his shoulders 2 bamboo baskets laden with steamed buns. A rope of sausages was coiled around his neck, and a meat pie dangled from his mouth. Moji knew he must have taken the largest one from the basket. Gumong was also clutching a heap of boiled corn. A few ears were even pinned under his arms. Is this a bear? Moji muttered behind the slightly cracked window. The bear of the altar peered around, checking that he hadn't been spotted, then looped back into the cellar at top speed. He moved so fast that a few of the corn cobs in his arms unfortunately tumbled away. Stunned, Gumong stopped in his tracks to crouched to pick up the fallen ears of corn. As soon as he moved his arm, however, the corn cobs pinned beneath them. Okay. Oh my god. As soon as he moved his arms, however, the corn cobs pinned beneath them fell to the ground as well. He froze once more. After a second's thought, he shoved the corn in his hands under his arms, and then nonchalantly reached down to pick up the newly fallen cobs on the ground. But as soon as he picked up the cobs on the ground, the corn beneath his arms fell again. He repeated the cycle, retrieving and dropping the corn over and over, again and again. Moji had no words. If Gumong was truly pretending, he didn't need to go to all the trouble of being a war general after all. He could switch careers and become an actor at the Pear Garden. Which has a footnote. Founded in the Tang Dynasty by Emperor Xuanzong, the Pear Garden is the oldest performing arts academy in China. Gumong stood in the courtyard in a state of complex befuddlement, staring helplessly for a long time. Eventually, he reached out a tentative hand to carefully pick a corn cob off the ground. Nice! Got it! The corn under his arms fell once more. Gumong really could not understand what was going on, so he scratched his head, bewildered. The moment he did, a few corn cobs tumbled out of his arms again. Moji was silent. Perhaps it was because he couldn't stand watching any more of this stupidity. Perhaps it was because he thought Gumong's act was too flawless. Perhaps even because he sensed that Gumong wasn't putting on an act after all, and his mind was truly broken. Whatever the reason, fury roared up in Moji's heart. Under its fiery influence, he flung the window open and thundered, "Are you dumb? Are you a pig? Can't you shove a few ears of corn into the basket on your back?" The servants in the surrounding buildings were all startled awake. They pushed open the windows to look outside, bleary-eyed. "What's going on?" someone shouted. "Are there monsters?" None of them had expected to see anything like the scene that greeted them. Silence reigned in the courtyard. Yet there was no end to Moji's rage. You don't even know how to pick up corn. The very sight of you, it annoys me. Even the meat pie had fallen out of Gumong's mouth. He turned his head to stare wide-eyed at Moji. In response to Moji's fierce and unfriendly expression, he grabbed an ear of corn and hurled it at him. And hurled it at him without hesitation. And you dare to raise a hand against me? Moji snapped. Although Gumong's shot had missed its target, he still turned tail and ran off with his loot. He nearly tripped in his haste to flee, but his martial foundation showed itself in the moment. In the split second before he would have fallen flat on his face, he caught himself, planting a hand on the ground. He then sprang to his feet and dashed into the cellar. Each movement flowed into the next as smooth as water, impossibly agile. Under the moonlight, golden ears of corn lay scattered across the ground. The servants and Moji were all flabbergasted. Li Wei was first to react. He slammed his window shut and extinguished his lamp at lightning speed, as though he hadn't seen anything. The other servants weren't so lucky and ended up on the receiving end of a severe dressing down from General Mo. What do you think you're looking at? Hurry up and go to sleep. I love it. After having coin thrown at him before an audience, Moji's bad mood lingered. He fumed the rest of the night and only managed to quell his fury by setting fire to 10 whole baskets of corn the next day. He was still disgruntled. Boy, you gotta not do that. That's fucked up. That's so wasteful. As soon as he stood by the pool feeding the fish, he asked Li Wei through gritted teeth, "How does he have the nerve to throw things at me?" Li Wei sighed ruefully. Their Jihajin was excellent in all respects, other than the fact that he was too fussy and had a bad temper. Thus Li Wei cajoled Moji as he peeled fruit for him. "Ayo, my lord, what's the point in getting mad? If you get sick, that would be bad. Isn't it just an ear of corn? No one's happy when you're mad. Besides, what goes around comes around. Today he throws stuff at you, tomorrow you'll toss stuff at him. Just bear with it a little longer and it'll pass. Come here, my lord. Have a slice of pear." "I want pear." Moji thought it over and realized that he indeed had few other options. He frostily accepted the pear without a word. Looking after Gumong was indeed like caring for an animal. As the day passed, Gumong gradually lowered his guard around the people of Jihe Manor. Sometimes he would creep out during the day and find a sheltered corner from which to silently survey his surroundings. When the courtyard was empty, he would sit by the pond and peacefully sunbathe for a spell. On sunny afternoons, Moji was meditating under a tree that seemed to be filled with squirrels preparing for winter. Not only were the leaves rustling, but every now and then a shower of fruit pits would rain down from its branches. At first, Moji was only slightly irked, but then a fruit pit smacked him squarely on the crown of his head. Never had he ever come across such an audacious little tree rat. His eyes snapped open as he glared up at the foliage, only to see Gumong perched on a branch high above. With his arms wrapped around the trunk, Gumong was shoving berries into his mouth with one hand while stuffing them into a cloth pouch with the other. His movements were rather clumsy as he grabbed bunch after bunch of berries. Sometimes errant fruits slipped between his fingers and tumbled to the ground like coral beads. The object that hit Moji must have been one of these. Moji was instantly speechless with fury. Seething quietly, he leveled a ferocious kick at the tree. Berries noisily ran down from the canopy. "Gumong!" Moji roared amid the downpour of fruit. Only then did the cheerful berry picker, Gumong, noticed that someone was standing beneath the tree. He looked down and his gaze met Moji's. The two stared at each other for a long moment. Gumong remained silent, but his bulging cheeks twitched. He clearly had more than one berry in his mouth. "Get down from there!" Moji snapped. Gumong's cheeks moved again. He swiftly looped the little cloth pouch around his neck and clambered into a higher, denser section of branches, taking care to tuck himself completely out of sight. Eee! Moji was on the verge of collapse. Great job. You're sure you won't fall out and die?" Gumong tossed another pit down from his perch in answer. To this, Moji had no response. Moji ground his teeth and endured Gumong's behavior for many long weeks until the weather turned bitterly cold. One day, Moji got out of bed to see Li Wei waiting outside his room. When he saw Moji push open the door, he bowed and said, "My lord." Moji glanced at him. Court was not in session today, and Li Wei wouldn't wait for him like this without reason. Moji asked blandly, "Did something happen at the Bureau of Military Affairs?" Li Wei offered him an ingratiating smile. "No, it's a different piece of good news." End of chapter. That was a really short one. Either it was short or it just felt really short because it was so silly. Oh my god. Chapter 43 is called, of course it's called this, it's called Use Me Then. Cause that's reasonable, cause that's fine. Cause that's not gonna make me go crazy. Ugh. Alright, page 109. Use me then. When Moji arrived at the mall... What the fuck? When Moji arrived at the main hall, Gumong was waiting there. "I spoke to him this morning. He didn't really respond, but he's not running away anymore," Li Wei said. "It seems he's settled in, so I'll give him some work to do starting tomorrow." Moji's tall, stern silhouette remained still and silent at the doorway. His face showed no sign of cheer. After a while, he asked coolly, "Why is this person in my chair?" Moji took his meals at the yellow rosewood table in the hall. Although 2 chairs were usually placed on either side of it, one was always empty. No one had ever sat in it. A clueless servant had once tried to take it away and provoked Jihujin's deepest displeasure. The servants had 2 guesses about the presence of this chair. First, that the seat was saved for Princess Mengzi, and second, that the Lord was such a perfectionist that the table had to look symmetrical. That would be me. That would be my reason for that, but okay. Not even Li Wei knew what was the truth. Oof, sorry. The other seat, at the head of the table, had always belonged to Moji. Yet at this moment it was occupied by Gumong, who clearly had no qualms about usurping the head of household's place. He turned to shoot Moji an unconcerned glance. Moji's face was cold as frost. "Get up." He doesn't know! He doesn't know! Gumong said nothing. He didn't move a muscle. Li Wei coughed and hastily strode over to Gumong. "Quick, get up, the Lord's angry." Gumong frowned. He didn't understand the phrase, the Lord. After all, Luomei Pavilion had only clients and managers. He looked at Moji and assumed that Li Wei had addressed him by name. "Are you called Lord?" Gumong's pristinely blank expression infuriated Moji. In lieu of a response, he stepped over and stared Gumong down. "I told you to get up." Gumong still didn't budge, so Moji reached out to yank him from the chair. Before he had so much as touched Gumong's lapels, however, the man leapt out of the chair and stood warily beside it. Although Moji loathed Gumong, he wouldn't go out of his way to humiliate him. He was aloof and righteous by nature. He wouldn't do anything overly depraved unless pushed to the brink. He certainly wouldn't stoop to Murong Leon's level and send Gumong to the brothel. Still, he was grumpy from just having woken up, so he had even less patience for Gumong than usual. Li Wei feared the 2 of them would get into a spat and cause another scene, so he rushed in to admonish Gumong. "Look at you. Of all the places you could sit in this massive residence, you had to choose Jihujin's place of honor. What do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You better pay attention and learn the rules from me. Stupid." Moji frowned in annoyance. "Take him away." "Yes, my lord." But Gumong refused. "I want to sit here." As he spoke, he pulled out the chair on the other side of the table, planning to take a seat. Moji's gaze flickered. as if that action had stabbed at some secret in his heart. "You can't," he snapped. "You can't sit there either." He paused briefly. "Why do you want to be here?" Gumong pointed at the table. "Food." Moji was speechless. "I've seen it," said Gumong. "Every day food appears here. People bring it to you. Very tasty." He calmly met Moji's chilly gaze. "I'm waiting." "You're waiting here for food?" Moji asked, his expression stormy. Gumong nodded. Ah! How could anyone be mean to him? Are you kidding me? Moji watched him silently for a moment. Oy. Then his lips curled into a sneer. "Gumong, who do you think you are?" He turned around and sat down. When he spoke again, he didn't even look up as he adjusted the silver weapon compartment hidden in the trim of his sleeves. "Li Wei, get him out of here." "Right away, my lord." Li Wei paused for a moment before asking hesitantly, "What about food?" "What about the food?" "Doesn't he still have a pile of corn in his cellar? He can scram back there and chew on that." This time, Gumong spoke up before Li Wei could respond. "It's gone." Asked Moji. "I ate them all." Moji looked up. "You hauled back 2 baskets of steamed buns, 4 or 5 ropes of sausage, and 7 pancakes." "All gone. I don't know anyone in the dining room. Too many people. I won't go in," Gumong said haltingly, his eyes cold and clear. "Can only come here." "Why can you come here?" Moji asked for a moment. "Because I know you. You gave me water." Gumong paused. "You taught me life worse than death. You also brought my—" Gumong was interrupted by the crash of a wine cup smashing into the wall. Moji's eyes gleamed darkly. "Shut up." Gumong did as he was told. Li Wei stood by helplessly, eyes flitting between the two. For the first time, he was at a loss as to how to smooth things over. Moji sat at the table with his arms crossed and his expression icy. He gazed at Gumong inscrutably. After a spell, he raised his chin and asked slowly, "Do you remember anything else?" "Wait, who is saying this?" "Moji, okay. Do you remember anything else?" Gumong cocked his head and thought. In the end, he shook his head. Moji lowered his lashes and scoffed. He looked up again. "Then get lost." But Gumong didn't get lost. He quietly stared at Moji's face, his eyes neither beseeching nor subservient. When he spoke again, his voice was flat and dispassionate, as though simply informing Moji as an objective fact. He stood right in front of Moji, his gaze so frank to be impudent, and insisted, obstinately, "I'm hungry." The two locked eyes in the contest of wills. In the end, Moji spoke first. "Fine. But you spent 2 years at Lome Pavilion, so you should understand meat pies don't fall from the sky. If you want to eat, then you need to work for it." Moji leaned forward slightly, his sharp gaze bisecting Gumong's pale visage like a flashing blade that cracked his shell and aimed for the tender flesh beneath. His voice was deep and slow. "Gu Shishong, I'll give you a chance to speak up for yourself. Tell me, what can you do for me?" Black eyes stared into blue, glinting with repressed hatred. "What do you want to do for me? What are you able to do for me? If you can convince me, I'll give you what you want. Just say it." Gumong looked at him in silence. A moment later, he held out an outstretched hand. Moji's expression shifted. "What does this mean?" "You can beat me. I won't die." Gumong's face was devoid of emotion. "But I get a meal for every beating. No beating without food." It's so sad. Moji paused. This is another of Lome Pavilion's rules. Yes. Moji rose and turned his face away before he spoke. Remember, this is Jiha Manor, not Wangshu Manor, and most certainly not Lome Pavilion. I have no interest in abusing you. What are you interested in doing to me, then? A strange expression rippled faintly across Moji's handsome face, as if he were recalling some unspeakable thing from the past. He quickly regained his composure and answered with icy arrogance. How would I know? Why don't you offer your services? Gumong was bewildered. Offer? It means just say it yourself, Moji replied grimly. Gumong thought for a moment, then tried to submit another of his possible uses. Then, do you like to curse at people? Reverb. Why is it either beating or cursing? Feeling wronged, Moji retorted, Do I fucking look like that kind of person? Li Wei remained silent. Gumong pondered for a long while this time. When he spoke again, he sounded confused. I don't know. I don't know what else I can do. He stared at Moji with those infuriatingly earnest blue eyes. His elegant face, usually as calm as still water, now seemed anxious. But I don't want to go back to Lome Pavilion. I don't want to go back. Seeing him like this enraged Moji for more reasons than one, but he didn't even know where to start. While he tried to tamp down his anger, Gumong piped up again. I also know how to sleep and eat. Are you interested? Oh, baby. Faced with Moji's silence, Gumong continued. I also know. He racked his brain for what further utility he had, until his face turned red from the effort. He couldn't come up with anything. Once he had been so strong and so clever, the most incredible young general in Changhua. He was like a blazing flame that sparked with endless inspiration, power, hope, and love. In Moji's eyes, there was practically nothing the General Gu of the past couldn't do. Oh, that rhymed. But his soul had been destroyed, his mind broken, and his fire extinguished. Now this man was only the scorched earth left behind after General Gu had burnt out. Damn! I don't know anything else, Gumong said eventually. He looked up at Moji in resignation. That's all I can do. Gumong had the precise expression of a beggar child who hoped desperately to buy a piping hot steamed bun, and had fumbled through his clothes to discover only a single grubby cowrie shell. He didn't know if it was enough, but he still held out his only coin as he bit his lip in worry. Do you want to use me? On further thought, Gumong decided he'd better address Moji by what he thought was his name. Lord. Moji, who was still playing with the hidden weapon compartment in his sleeve, nearly cut his finger open. He couldn't muster a reply for a long while. There was an itch in some corner of his heart that wasn't quite right. He instinctively knew what this feeling was, and that was dangerous. You knew me in the past. No, who's going? But I skipped. Okay, what? Hang on. Dangerous. So he quickly looked away from Gumong. Don't call me random names. You knew me in the past. My name is Moji, he said with a dark expression. After a moment's thought, he added briskly, Forget it. You should call me Jihujun. Moji fastened the weapon compartment shut and stilled briefly. He turned back to Gumong. Listen up. Jiha Manor isn't like Lome Pavilion. No one will beat you or curse at you here. Lies. But because you're a criminal, you don't get a choice in most things. If you want to eat, you have to earn your keep. But I don't know. You used to know all these things, Moji said. If you don't remember, Li Wei will teach you again. Behave and do as he says. As long as you finish your work, you can come get your food. I get food if I finish my work? Yes, but you can't slack off. Understood? Gumong nodded. Then go. Moji glanced at the water clock on the side table. Once you've done your work for today, you may come here for the evening meal. Oh my god. He said it. Okay, sorry, I'm reading ahead. My lord, will you be needing another chair? Li Wei hastily asked. Why would I? Moji shot him a tired look. Isn't there an empty one right there? Li Wei was at a loss for words. But haven't you been saving this ownerless chair for Princess Mengzi all this time, like the rumors say? Still, he acquiesced. Despite his confusion, he readied himself to leave with Gumong in tow. Before they reached the door, however, Moji called him back again. Wait. Come here. What is it, my lord? Moji looked thoughtfully at Gumong, then said to Li Wei, Go to the dining hall and tell the head cook I have some requests for tonight's dinner. He spoke a few more words to Li Wei in a low voice, and then said lightly, That's all. Just do as I say. You may go. Scene break! Scene break while I get situated. Can you hear me when I crack my neck? Okay. The first task Li Wei gave to Gumong was very simple, yet thoroughly exhausting. Chopping firewood. Who is speaking? I think it's Li Wei. Jihajun is a cultivator, but most of the staff in our manor are ordinary humans. They can't summon a fireball with a wave of their hand, so we're still sorely lacking in firewood for the winter. Li Wei pointed at the small mountain of wood before them. Chop all of this. You won't get dinner until you've finished. Gumong stared at the pile of logs, then looked at Li Wei without making a sound. Do you understand? Li Wei asked. If you don't, then ask. At Gumong's silence, Li Wei rolled up his sleeves and made a few chopping motions. Chop. Firewood. Do you understand? Cut up all this wood. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Gumong didn't seem to fully comprehend his meaning, but he had grasped the most important word. Cut. Without saying yes or no, he picked up the axe stuck in the ground and turned to Li Wei to confirm. Cut these? Yes, cut these. All of them? All of them. Can't eat until I cut it all? You can't eat until you cut it all. With that, Gumong turned and began to chop firewood without another word. Such work required little technique, but demanded a great deal of time and effort, and was deeply dull besides. No one in Jihe Manor liked doing it, but Gumong had no complaints. With his lips slightly pursed and sweat beading on his long lashes, he threw everything he had into each swing of the axe, as if he held a deep grudge against these particular logs. His enthusiasm was unflagging. With every log that disappeared from the pile, he got closer and closer to his meal. Oh, he's still so hungry! By the time the sky had darkened, the mountainous pile of timber had become a great heap of firewood. Gumong tossed the axe aside. Without even bothering to wipe the sweat from his brow, he went straight to the hall to collect his reward for the day. Although it was snowing heavily and wretchedly cold outside, the main hall shone bright with candles. Dishes kept warm beneath thick lids were arrayed on the rosewood table. A clay pot of soup simmered on the stove. Wisps of steam escaped to curl into the air. Moji sat there, waiting for him. He's still chopping! Stop! He's still chopping! That's the end of that chapter. Oh my goodness. Oh, no, he's not still. Okay. Okay. Oh, he's so precious. How could anyone hurt him? I'm the problem. The next chapter is called Crispy Roast Goose. I think we're just going to continue. Chapter 44, page 119. These have all been 10 pages so far. Sit, Moji said lightly. There was no one else in the hall. Gumong was certainly not one to stand on ceremony. He pulled out the other chair and quickly sat, then reached out and took the lids off the platters in front of him. There were 8 different dishes: sea cucumber sautéed with green onion, yellow croaker fish fried with green onion, venison roasted with green... Oh no, does he really hate green onions? Venison roasted with green onion, beef stir-fried with green onion tofu, green onion egg drop soup, green onion pancake, as though someone in the kitchen had sworn a blood feud against green onions. The only dish without this vegetable was a whole roast goose arranged over a charcoal brazier to the table's side. After an entire day of swinging an axe, Gumong was so hungry he felt like a hole had been punched through his stomach. Without a care for Moji's reaction, he immediately dug in with bare hands. He spared not a glance for the jade chopsticks and plates on the table. First, he grabbed a yellow croaker fish and took a large bite. Oh, he's so mean to him! After chewing once, he spat it back out. Yuck! Moji didn't bat an eyelash. He watched Gumong with elegant poise from his chair at the other end of the table. Try a different dish. Gumong reached for a piece of the roasted venison with green onion. After a few nibbles, he spat that out as well. Does it also taste bad? Then try another. This time, Gumong hesitated, scanning the table full of dishes over and over. Cautiously, he picked a green onion pancake out of a bamboo basket. This time, he didn't immediately take a bite. He held off the pancake and sniffed it, wrinkled his nose, then sniffed at it again, dissatisfied. In the end, he licked it, the tip of his tongue as delicate as a flower pistil. The sight of his flickering tongue seemed to stir something in Moji's memories. Yeah, okay, guy. His dark pupils glimmered as a hint of shadow flinted across his solemn features. He turned away. I don't like this green thing, Gumong said a few licks later. His complexion took on a sickly tinge. I can't eat it. That's hardly surprising, thought Moji. It would be stranger if you had liked it. Great numbers of people had once invited the former General Gu to share a meal with them, but very few knew his preferences. Gumong, subject to the Murong clan's strict discipline since he was a child, had a kind of disposition. He would never consider pointing out what dishes he didn't like at a banquet. Instead, he always thanked others for their generosity. Not even Murong Lian knew Gumong's disgust for green onions, despite living with him for so many years. Moji, however, was well aware of it. What's the green stuff called? Green onion, Moji answered, expressionless. Whatever. Gumong pouted. Then I don't like green onion. Moji didn't reply. With a twitch of his finger, his spiritual energy sent the flames to the brazier, roaring high. The roast goose had been stuffed with berries and skewered on a branch to roast slowly over a fruit-wood fire, and was now golden brown and crisp. Moji sprinkled salt on it and picked up a small knife. He leisurely cut off one of the goose's legs and passed it to Gumong. Try this. Gumong accepted the food, but after having experienced this nightmare of the green onions, he was profoundly wary. He held up the drumstick and carefully inspected it, staring at the shimmering grease and burnished amber skin. Steam rose off it, carrying the savory aroma of meat and the smoky fragrance of fruitwood. Gumong swallowed unconsciously, yet still carefully asked, There's no green onion? None. He bit down, the crispy golden skin crackling between his teeth. The savory meat running with hot juices and fat instantly filled his mouth with flavor. Gumong polished off the drumstick in a few bites, even licking his fingers. Then he stared at the roast goose in the fire pit with shining eyes. More, he demanded. Strangely enough, Moji took no offense at being ordered about like a cook. He even thoughtfully pushed the dish of sour plum sauce in front of him over to Gumong. Then he carved Gumong a full plate of roast goose and watched his unbridled delight as he ate it without taking a single bite himself. What the hell? Do you like this roast goose? Moji asked. Cheeks bulging, Gumong mumbled, Yes. That's good, Moji replied. His voice was even, without inflection. This is the only dish I made. Everything else was prepared by the cook. Good job. Gumong tossed out a mindless compliment for Master Chef Mo before busying himself with the roast goose again. Moji's voice clearly held far less allure than the goose's crispy skin. Not really. I'm no good in the kitchen. A Shishong of mine taught me how to make this goose dish years ago, back when the two of us were stationed at the fortress on the frontier. He's trying again. He's shooting his shot. He's shooting his shot again. Outside the window, snow flurries drifted down and onto the latticework, where they formed a layer of glittering crystals. Inside, Gumong was still engrossed with his food. Moji spoke with a rare calm, like a beast trapped within the mire of memory, unable to summon its ferocity ever again. Damn! At the time, we were still low-level cultivators, looking out for each other within our own squad. Moji paused. To be fair, it was more him looking out for me. He was 3 years my senior, and more advanced in both maturity and cultivation. Back then, I thought there was nothing on Earth he didn't know. Be it supernatural mysteries or roast ghosts, he could explain anything perfectly. It was winter then, too, and we had just fought a hard battle. The enemy soldiers had attacked our supply lines and cut off our provisions. Our troops didn't have enough food, and what little we had was distributed according to rank. Dang. As Moji studied Gumong, his gaze, usually so sharp, was uncommonly distant. Neither of us had enough to eat, he murmured. One night we were on duty, patrolling on either side of the camp. I don't know how he did it, but in all that snow he somehow brought down a fat goose. He could have eaten it all by himself, but for some reason he cheerfully called me over. You know, I was in the middle of a growth spurt back then, so my appetite was actually much bigger than his. At this, Gumong paused and looked up. After a beat of silence, Moji asked, What's wrong? Gumong licked his lips and dragged his plate closer to Moji. Give me another drumstick. Arching his brow, Moji carved off the remaining drumstick and gave it to Gumong. Then, careless of whether Gumong was listening, he continued his story. He picked some berries from a tree. Gumong looked up and fixed him with another stare. Moji pursed his lips. There's no more. Each goose has only 2 drumsticks. Besides, you haven't even finished the one on your plate. But Gumong suddenly cut in, seemingly without rhyme or reason. Berries are so good. Moji paused and gave him a thoughtful look. You're right. Berries are good. That man also liked berries. And he often went to a lot of trouble to climb trees and pick them. Do berries grow on trees? Oh my god, I'm sorry. I guess. Oh yeah, no, they definitely do. I don't know. I for some reason I was thinking that berries are only like bush things, but no, they're definitely tree things as well. Anyway. Moji paused and gave him a thoughtful look. No, I already read that. He insisted that the difference between hand-picked berries and those struck down with magic was night and day. The roast goose recipe he taught me was very simple. Other than the goose, It only called for some salt and a handful of fresh berries. You eat it with the berries? No, the berries were for stuffing the goose. He skewered it with a branch and smoked it over pine. Oh, he's still speaking. He skewered it with a branch and smoked it over pine with lychee wood. Pine and lychee wood, Muji said. We sat by the fire pit, and he added branches from time to time. Once the goose was golden, he sprinkled salt on it and took it off the fire. First he removed the berries, and then he dove right in. He warned me to be very careful. Careful of what? We'd kept watch over that goose and smelled it cooking for so long, staring as it crisped and browned over the fire, watching its drumsticks trickling down. What? No, watching its drippings trickling down. Obviously, we were ravenous after that, and could hardly wait to take a bite, Moji said lightly. It was hard to avoid burning our tongues. Did you burn your tongue? How could I possibly? Moji's eyes were hazy and vacant. You, on the other hand. Gumong gnawed at the drumstick and licked his lips. Look, I didn't burn mine either. Moji hesitated. That's not what I meant. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Pretend I didn't say anything. Thus instructed, Gumong paid no more mind to aught other than his meal. He ate half the entire goose, then fell. He ate half the entire goose, then fell into a stupor as he stared at what remained. In the end, he didn't eat any more. You're done? Moji asked. Gumong nodded. Moji found this somewhat strange. Gumong's appetite seemed formidable these days, so how could half a roast goose be enough for him? But before he could even give it more thought, Gumong asked, Your Shishong, what was his name? This question was like an arrow piercing his heart. Moji's head snapped up as he met Gumong, and he met Gumong's eyes, which were clear and filled with open curiosity. In the face of that gaze, Moji's heart slowly began to ache. Gumong, are you pretending? If you are, how could you be so calm? That person. Moji paused. His name was... What was his name? It was 2 syllables, 2 simple syllables, but they lodged in his throat, unutterable, no matter how hard he tried. Moji choked on that name. He had spoken those 2 words so many times before, but now they were like the shards of a tender dream that had shattered years ago, stabbing him until his heart and lungs were full of blood. He couldn't say it. Desperately, as he tried to endure the pain he felt, the rims of his eyes gradually reddened. He abruptly turned away, and when he spoke again, his voice was much harsher than before. What's the point of asking? What does it have to do with you? Gumong answered him with silence. Moji's interest in the meal waned. After Gumong left, Moji's gaze fell on the sour plum sauce that had been next to Gumong's elbow. During the meal, Moji hadn't explained what the sauce was for, so it had gone completely ignored. It remained perfectly untouched. Closing his eyes, Moji seemed to hear a familiar voice. Shidi, eating the roast goose... What the fuck? Eating the roast goose by itself is no fun at all. Try this dipping sauce made from cooked plums. It's sweet and sour. When you take a bite of crispy skin with this stuff, whoa. The smile in that voice was audible. It's so good you'll want to lick the plate. Even now, Moji could still remember certain details from back then clearly. The pristine blanket of snow on the ground, the occasional flurries of wind-blown ash, the brilliant flickering of a fire pit, and the person sitting by his side, laughing as he played with pine branches. Gumong. Gumong had turned his head, features bathed in the warm glow of the orange flames. His dark eyes were so deep and bright. Come, try this piece. I dipped it in sour plum sauce. How is it? Is it good? Of course it is. When has your Gumang Guga ever lied to you? I'm the most honest man in the world. I've never tricked anyone. Moji's fists clenched against his will, his nails sinking deep into his palms. He had specifically carved the goose into many thin pieces for Gumang to eat. He had also made a point of talking to Gumang while he ate, because he knew that people became more easily distracted when they were preoccupied with two things at once. In the past, whenever Gumang ate this kind of crispy-skinned goose, he absolutely had to dip each piece in the sweet and sour plum sauce. Even if he forgot before he took the first bite, he would pause and dip it in the saucer before continuing. This habit of his was deeply ingrained. Moji had thought that if Gumang was pretending, it would be hard for him to keep his guard up while he maintained the conversation. Gumang probably would have dipped the goose in the sauce at least once, just out of habit. But he did not. Gumang seemed completely oblivious to the purpose of this dish. That congealed dish of plums remained every bit as untouched as it had been when Moji had first set it down. In contrast, the hope that filled Moji's chest when he pushed the dish toward Gumang had gone. Snow fell heavily beyond the window, but the remains of the feast before Moji seemed colder than the winter wind. Moji didn't know why a spat of violent resentment suddenly coursed through his body. Hate prickled hot in him, and he lunged and turned the entire table of cooled leftovers with an almighty crash. So wasteful! Li Wei was drawn by the commotion. He rushed in to find Moji by the window, exhausted, face buried in his hands. His head hung low as if the loss of his hope had taken with it his will to live. My lord! Go away. My lord, why go to such trouble? It doesn't matter if he remembers or if he's pretending. The end result is the same. Why bother? No, it wasn't the same. The Gumang he wanted, the Gumang he hated, the Gu Shishang he admired. They should all be whole. They should be capable of fighting him, of wielding a blade to meet or to match him. Only with the enmity. Enmity? Woohoo! Of betrayal could he draw gasping breath. Only there would he have a future to strive for. Only there could he have the satisfaction of taking revenge. Only there he could have hope. Only there he would have something beyond this debilitating feebleness that felt like punching a wad of soft cotton. He had his hatred and his resentment, but he had lost the only target upon which he could set his emotions loose. My lord, my lord! A servant ran into the hall. Li Wei turned instantly to nail him with a glare, mouthing silently. Stop yelling. Can't you see Shihujun is in a foul mood? The servant had the look of being caught between a rock and a hard place. After a moment's hesitation, he nevertheless bent his head and made his report. My lord, a herald from his Imperial Majesty has arrived and is waiting outside. Moji tilted his head minutely, his sharp brows knitting in a frown. Herald? Yes, the servant swallowed nervously. It's terribly urgent. He says that His Imperial Majesty, because of a certain matter of importance, requires you at once. And that's chapter 44. Damn. And we're on an ad break. I'm gonna be honest. My throat kind of hurts. Ugh. My throat hurts a little bit. My reading is fine today. My throat is not. Granted, I was experimenting a little bit by speaking more down here. Mostly for the majority of the stream. But it's a change. It's a listen, I'm trying to do some voice training shit. And it's, I keep forgetting about it. I keep forgetting about it when it's, like, not even that hard. But yeah, that's a change, and I think I might have to end it here. Because again, my throat does hurt. Oh, but oh, and I'm still so sleepy. Oh my. Oh me, oh my. Okay, but the next chapter is called My... Oh! I didn't even look at that before I started to read it. The next chapter is called My Turn to Chain You. So... Oh, this one is a little longer. So, let's just read one more. Listen, I don't like... I think I need to read one more. I think I do. How are you on the 30-day streak? Do I even have I ever even streamed that long? Ever in my life? That many times. I did stream quite a lot this month, I'm not gonna lie. La 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 la. Sorry. I'm distracting you from this ad that's in progress on my Twitch. La 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 la. Do I want to do another chat? Oh, I'm so indecisive. Might as well call me a Libra, but I'm not. I'm a Leo. I'm a Leo. You're gay. You're gay. You know, there's some residue in this tea that really looks gross. It looks really, really nasty. But I know it's just tea bits, you know? But it's so nasty. It looks so bad. Oh, do I want to do another one? My turn to chain you. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm gonna. I know I go back and forth, but I don't think so. I'm quite tired and my throat's... I don't want to ruin my throat today. That's for another day. But yeah, in that case, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining the book club today. I should have like a thing if we're... Ooh, yeah, once I get my Discord up, I should have a book club channel. That would be nice. Anyway, I will leave you on that. And yeah, I'm just gonna skedaddle. I'm quite hungry. That's another thing that I just couldn't pinpoint until now. I'm quite hungry, so I'll go get some nummies, some foods, and I'll leave you to it. I'll leave you with that. All right? Have a good day. Have a good day and mask up. I'll see you later. I'll see you on Sunday. Bye.